So starting the test drive in this Armada, this big V8 has a pretty good track record in terms of reliability. It's also just a big motor in general, so really good for towing. But I just like how quick it is, how much power it has. It feels muscular. But also the size of the Armada is one of the reasons that people love these as well. This still feels like, so I drove a Sequoia earlier today, a 24, and that Sequoia does not feel like the outgoing Sequoia. It doesn't feel as much like a tank. This Armada feels like pretty much every other Armada before it in terms of just feeling like a strong, big, aggressive SUV. And I feel like with a name like Armada, you kind of want to keep it that way. Again, since the QX80 got its redesign, got a little slimmer, body lines look good, I'm curious as to how the Armada will adjust. But I just have a feeling that it'll still have that same feel. It won't feel like the Sequoia, where it's still big, but it doesn't feel big. Again, this still feels huge, which I like. And it still chugs a ton of gas, but again, very spacious in here, great tow capacity, and it has a presence to it, I think. Now, this has a pretty, I don't want to call it an old powertrain, but it has a more tried and true powertrain. We still have the 7-speed automatic that's been in here for a minute. Of course, we still have the 5.6 Endurance V8. And I like that it still feels clean. It's still like, it puts down so nicely without a bunch of shifts. But you still are able to get relatively good fuel economy as opposed to the older ones, just because you have a 7-speed as opposed to 5-speed. But it drives so nice. That's the best way to really describe this thing. It's a very nice driving SUV. And with this big V8, you only really hear it when you're giving it throttle. When you're cruising like this, very quiet. And the road noise is almost, you have to listen for it, honestly, even on these bigger 22-inch wheels. But if you compare this to a new Tahoe, even a new Sequoia, new Expedition, this still holds its own against the competition. Because when they did the redesign of these, it was so ahead of its time. He didn't even really it's been a good looking SUV for so long that everybody else is just kind of now catching up. But I think a really good road trip SUV if it weren't so thirsty. But again, it's a big boy, and if you're gonna be towing with it anyway, you're not really worried about that. But having this higher displacement V8 also kind of helps with that long term as well, because you're not having to push a smaller engine as hard. But I'm going to give it just a bit of throttle getting on the interstate here, if I can. So nobody's behind me. Gonna give myself a bit of space. Here we go. So I'm not flooring it because this engine doesn't have too much on it, but I definitely wanted to give it a nice pull there. I'm pretty impressed by the overall power delivery. But if you're looking for one of these here in the Manchester, Tennessee area, definitely make sure you check out John Roberts Nissan. And then if you're outside of the area and you're looking for the best deal in your neck of the woods, check out the link below. Get yourself a bargain new car quote there. And we can just make sure you get the best price in your area. All you need is name, phone number, email. But I expect a redesign to come out for these. Still a pretty impressive SUV, just in terms of tech. Not having the lane centering's a tad behind. But with all that being said, this will bring me to the end of my review of this 2024 Nissan Armada Platinum.